Next up, Peter Wolfgang.
Senator McCrory, members of the committee, good morning. I am Peter Wolfgang, president of Family Institute of Connecticut, and I am testifying in opposition of HB 5468. HB 5468 creates serious privacy and constitutional issues. The bill allows student education records to be shared with the Department of Children and Families so the agency can review whether a parent has received services. That raises concerns about student privacy. Federal law generally protects education records and limits when they can be shared with outside agencies. Using those records to screen families who may not have any child welfare case could undermine the basic principle that student records should remain confidential. And recall as well what the Department of Education Commissioner said about the possible loss of millions of federal dollars. I am also concerned about the role given to the State Education Resource Center, or SERC, SERC, in lines 237 to 244 of the bill. Under the bill, homeschool portfolios and educational records could be shared with SERC to evaluate whether families have demonstrated equivalent instruction. SERC provides training and policy support to public schools, including programs focused on gender identity politics. Many families who choose homeschooling do so precisely because they want to provide an education consistent with their own religious or moral convictions. And having their portfolio reviewed by SERC would certainly violate that. Protecting children and supporting education are goals we all share. But HB 5468 creates new problems without clearly solving existing ones. And look, I mean, SERC, the whole point of this bill, right? Supposedly, we were told all along, was to address what happened, the tragedies in Waterbury and in New Britain. And the concern on the homeschooling side all along was that this was just a pretext. It wasn't really about addressing that. Well, how does having homeschool curriculum reviewed by this group SERC prevent another Waterbury or New Britain? It seems to confirm the agenda that we all suspected was there. It feels like a smoking gun of some sort. You know, this bill does not solve the problem of kids dying on DCF's watch. And so it felt like you're not even hiding it when you've got SERC in there. So I ask you again, please vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Representative?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the persons who testified many hours ago said there were no studies that homeschoolers outperformed public schoolers, but your written testimony cites 2 peer-reviewed studies. I don't know if you'd like to briefly share those with us.
Yeah, there are. Hold on. It's been a long day. What are we up to 14 hours? I do have my written testimony in front of me somewhere. And it links to the studies, if I'm not mistaken. Oh gosh. Oh, okay. We've got, yeah, for the sources page at the back, the National Center for Education Statistics, Homeschooling in the United States, 2023. And there's also a study by Brian D. Ray, Research Facts on Homeschooling from the Journal of School Choice. There are studies out there. That was a very strange testimony. You know, I think we're about 14 hours now into this hearing. And there's been maybe 3 or 4 people that have testified in favor of the bill. Most of us have testified against it. And the interesting thing is, I don't think most of those people who testified for the bill were even from Connecticut, including the person that you're referencing. There seems to be an organization. You heard this from the woman from Germany, Heidi, or who had, you know, a German husband and all of that. That there's some sort of agenda there with that organization that gentleman represented. The language that they used to describe homeschoolers, to describe us as an extremist organization. The young man who claimed that there were no studies that showed that homeschoolers outperform public school kids hailed from that organization. So, I mean, the studies are out there for people who are willing to look for them. And I would urge very strong caution regarding that organization that called itself Responsible Something or Other. It does seem like it's an agenda. It does seem like we had this horrible tragedy in Waterbury, in New Britain, and we all mourn for the victims of those two tragedies. But it should not have been used as a pretext, Representative Anderson, to take away the freedom that homeschoolers have always had for many, many years in the state of Connecticut. Those studies do exist. It's in my written testimony, which is publicly available online. And when you look at that group, CIRC, that is one of the groups that a Board of Education can use to review the curriculum, when you look at their agenda, which is diametrically opposed, I'm sure, to most of the evangelical and Catholic Christian families that have been testifying here today, it does seem like those horrible tragedies were exploited to get the grips into the homeschoolers, to those of us in the state that have always been separate from state control, and especially from more recent agendas. It feels like they're coming after us.
Thank you, Mr. Wolfgang. Yeah, one of the studies you cited in your written testimony said that on average, that homeschoolers scored 15 to 25 percentile points above public school students. You know, I wonder if the public schools really should be studying homeschooling for performance and cost. I know of a hybrid private Christian school across the state line of Massachusetts that I don't recall if they meet 2 or 3 days a week in a building, you know, for no cost from the town that's vacant, actually the school I went to. And I wonder if we could really, how to get better performance for far less money. We could learn something from the homeschoolers. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, thank you, Peter, for being here today. I know that you've been around the block for a really long time up here, and I wondered if you had concerns about this opening up the door to legislative creep. In your experience, because you've been up here for a long time, we see one bill that is the beginning of many others to follow with more and more policy and regulation. Can you speak to that?
Well, Representative Dauphiné, this is the second public hearing that I am testifying in today. I spoke at the vaccines hearing as well, and our concern there was a section in one of the two bills that created a carve-out from the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which sets a very dangerous precedent. This circles back to homeschooling and to your question. The point is, if you can have a carve-out for vaccines, and I emphasize too that the Wolfgangs, we have relatively, in the Family Institute, we have relatively conventional views about vaccines. But, you know, it's like that old poem from World War II. First they came for this group, but I didn't belong to that group, so I didn't say anything. Then they came for the next group. Our freedom, our liberty, Representative Dauphiné, all hangs together. And what we've seen, you're right, I've been around for a while at this point. What we've seen is that the people that introduce these bills, they're master incrementalists. And it always begins with, oh, just this little thing. It's not going to go any further than that. How can you oppose just this little thing? And, you know, if they set a precedent where there can be a carve out for just this little thing on religious freedom, they're going to come back for the next thing. And I feel that in the homeschooling world as well, too, with this bill. Where they make it sound like it's so reasonable. There were these tragedies in Waterbury and in New Britain. I mean, surely who among us would not want to pass any bill that could prevent that sort of thing? But as I think we've already seen in those lines in the bill where I mentioned this group CIRC, that could be one of the groups in charge of reviewing the homeschooling portfolio and the educational records, a group that has the usual agenda, the gender identity agenda and everything, that conservative Christian homeschoolers actually homeschool in part to get away from. You get that sense that, you know, that incrementalism that I think your question is getting at is there. It's present here. The agenda is here. And, you know, we're not wrong. to pick up on it right away and push back on it. I've seen it on any number of issues that I work on. I'm up here every year, almost every year, testifying against assisted suicide. And the folks in favor of assisted suicide, they talk about how, well, this is just for people with 6 months or less to live who are of sound mind. And they've been saying that for 15 years. But in the states where it's already legal, they've come back to expand it. And in some cases, they have expanded it. This is what we see over and over again. So all the good people, the people who are there physically all day long, those of us testifying online, we are not wrong to raise the alarm on this and to drum up as much opposition as we can and hopefully kill this bill.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, would you agree that the mere fact that DCF will have to be notified of any family that withdraws their children from public school would set a precedence and a carve-out, such as you speak of with the carve-out with religious freedom?
Very much so. I think we would go from being one of the best states, believe it or not. And look, doing the work that I do, it often feels like Connecticut, that I'm fighting behind enemy lines. But we actually have some of the best religious liberty laws in the country, if you can believe it. We actually have some of the best homeschooling freedom laws in the country. And on both those scores, our freedom to homeschool, our religious liberty, I think if this bill were to become law, we would go overnight from being one of the best states in the country on these issues to one of the worst. This bill is a very dangerous bill, and we have yet to know even how it will be interpreted by administrative agencies, by judges, and so forth. It's just not a thing that we should go down, a rabbit hole that we should go down, Representative Dauphiné.
Thank you so much for your testimony today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I just had a quick question for the.
Representative.
Sure. Is he still on or?
I'm still here.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Appreciate you staying up so late and giving us your testimony. So you referenced the studies and the data about the performance of homeschool students. I was just curious about how that data is collected.
Oh gosh, I don't have the studies in front of me. I could follow up with you on how that data was collected, but I can tell you that they're reputable journals. These are not. The gentleman from the what was it? Homeschool Responsibility Group. He cited some group that I've never heard of before. Whereas the National Center for Education Statistics, the journal. These are entities that are a little more mainstream. I can tell you that. But as for how the data is collected, I don't know. These are peer-reviewed journals. And so, I mean, if it was bad data, then there'd be a study coming out a year later attempting to refute it.
Well, I'm just curious. I'm assuming, am I wrong in assuming that people are just are self-administering the tests and then collecting the data and then self-reporting?
Yeah, I don't have the methodology of those studies in front of me right now, Representative.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the honesty. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative.
Well, thank you, Peter, for staying here as long as you have, even if you're online. I just wanted to pose a question of, in the event that this goes forward, in the spirit of fairness, would you think it appropriate that the public schools give a portfolio to the parents at least once a year?
Yeah, well, in general, I am in strong agreement with the larger spirit of your question. Our public schools have gotten away from us, right? I mean, this has been a big issue in recent years in a number of those agendas that I alluded to earlier. You know, whether or not we use the public schools, we pay taxes to fund the public schools, to pay the salaries of the teachers, the superintendents, and so forth. And, you know, someone earlier today quoted that great line from Pierce versus Society of Sisters, the 1925 U.S. Supreme Court decision, where the court said, children are not mere creatures of the state. And, you know, for many years, we had a school system that recognized that. I don't think the school system recognizes that anymore. I don't think, theoretically, the Board of Ed members they're elected officials. They should be accountable to the parents, to the people paying the taxes, and they're not. So, yeah, I do think they're not like they used to be. We hear about like mandates that they have no control over, supposedly. We've seen, oh gosh, so many YouTube videos of parents speaking before Board of Education meetings, complaining about the agendas that are being foisted on their children and how they get no say in it. And the boards of ed just pretty much ignore them and keep doing it. So, yeah, I think even apart from this bill, I think public schools probably should be reporting to their parents a lot more than they are, the parents of their students.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony, Peter. Next
Thank
up,
you, Senator.